Hi, Gary Bernier from the Business Growth Guys. Welcome back. This is Module 4, where I get into the advanced mobile website techniques. If you haven't seen the earlier segments, Module 1 shows you where the transition took place in mobile traffic. Module 2 shows you how to figure out when that took place for yourself, how to keep track of your mobile traffic. Module number 3 gives you some design tips on how to build out your mobile site. This one is about advanced website techniques. This is, again, not for every business. This is for the business that serves a greater community and needs to push that speed envelope as high as possible. So the first topic that I'll walk you through is a static site versus a generated or rendered site. A lot of us use WordPress. WordPress generates or renders that content on the fly. We'll talk about that and how to transform that. DNS, which is actually how your domain name or your website address gets translated to an actual physical address, meaning how does it get to the server? That could be slowing you down. Google likes HTTPS today, and they're promoting HTTPS over HTTP, but HTTPS adds another layer of computation on top of your content. It actually makes your content a little bit bigger to give it that security. So that also takes time and computing power. And then we'll take a look at what changes you need to make in your hosting in terms of possibly using Amazon Web Services, Cloudflare, and others. So let's start with a WordPress plugin called Simply Static and talk about rendering. So when we use WordPress, the content that we type in and having a content management system is great for the editor because it allows us to easily create the content. But anytime somebody asks for that page to load, WordPress actually goes through a generation routine. It actually grabs all of those pieces and works hard using CPU power of the server and everything else to put that page out to the client, be it mobile or desktop. Simply Static is a plugin that will take your WordPress site and it will actually convert it to a non-rendered site, what's called a static HTML site. Now, they promote it as a unhackable site, which it is, so that's an advantage. But the big thing is, if we were going to do and use some of the advanced hosting, which I'm going to talk about later, it's much easier to upload this static website, and it'll be ultimately much faster if you have a static website running than if you were to use a rendered site and try and do that rendering across multiple physical locations. So the first thing is, if we can disable rendering or take rendering out of the equation, we automatically up performance speed. It doesn't make the web developers' life easier because anytime you make a change, you have to run it through this plugin, then you have to upload this into your hosting environment. So there is an additional step, but again, this is one of those ones where does the benefits outweigh the pain in the butt factor of this actual piece. So DNS. Let's talk about that. There's a company out there called Cloudflare. I use them all the time for my DNS because they have multiple DNS servers wrapped around the world. So instead of running 2 DNS servers, they put all their DNS in the cloud, and that means that when somebody does a lookup on my website, I get a much faster result. Now, they also have a bunch of other optimizations in their products, so they will actually help with the optimization of the HTTPS over HTTP, which kind of brings us to the hosting component. So I love this picture from Amazon of their CloudFront infrastructure, and what you can see is that they have multiple sites, West Coast sites, East Coast sites, some in the middle of the U.S. If you're servicing Europe, they've got some in Europe, and then as you go around the rest of the world, over into England or Australia, if you're serving the English-speaking populations. So they've already got the hosting set up. They've already got the infrastructure set up so that you can take your static site, upload it once, it'll get replicated across this infrastructure. Your DNS and their load balancing will then route the person to the closest server. I'm going to say that again. Their load balancing and their tools will then take the user on their mobile phone or on their desktop and route them to the fastest place they could get the content, the most local place that they could get the content. So this means that anytime somebody's looking for your content, they're going to get the fastest load time possible, because they're not going to one hosting location. They're going to one of many hosting locations. So this is a big tip. This will, again, if you take rendering out of your equation, upload it to something like Amazon Web Services, or use Cloudflare's tools for acceleration, you're going to drive your page load speeds down, and you're going to increase that. That's going to be the same no matter whether you're on the west coast of the U.S., on the east coast of the U.S., or North America, north or south. You're going to get routed to the right content. If somebody in Europe is going to get routed to local European version of the content. So Google then becomes really, really happy with you, because your page load speed is consistent no matter where they're trying to pull it up from. And the fact that it's static content versus rendered content they like better. These are little things in the that'll affect your search engine ranking, and so you will find you'll climb up in the rankings just because of these extra optimizations that you've put into your site. Now again, not every business needs this, but if you're trying to be competitive and knock somebody else out, you'll want to mobile optimize your website, and you'll want to use some of these advanced tools. So I hope you've enjoyed this segment. You probably have questions, because again, these are not things you typically hear about. This is some deep geek speak, and may not make sense at first blush. So put your questions into the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. And thanks for listening.